How's it going, everyone? I'm Coach Sean. Today we've got Mark here and we're going to discuss about using wheelchairs, how you keep fit in a wheelchair, weight management, range of motion, how it affects you mentally and all that sort of thing. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you.
Very nice to meet you. So, how do you keep fit by using a wheelchair?
Well, to start with, I probably don't do as much as I should. So that's one of the things, that exercise has declined recently for me, and I think that's an important thing. But I think, I like using rowing machines. I like sort of trying to do things that are strength building as well as increasing my movement. But it really has dropped off in the last few sort of months and with everything that's been going on, because I haven't been able to go to the gym because that was my motivation.
Yeah.
So, I don't do as much movement as I used to do because I don't go to work as much as I used to, etc. So I think for me, I always enjoy it when I do it, but I've got to motivate myself to do it. And going to the gym thing was the motivation, because I had to make an effort to go out of the house and make an effort to go and do it. And because I've not been able to do that, my exercise levels have dropped off.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, I've lost some range of movement. I haven't lost functionality, but I've noticed that things that were easier in the past are now a little bit harder now because the strength hasn't been maintained. Because I think it's a lot about that for me. It's a lot about strength maintaining, and it's a lot about movement and maintaining that movement. But I enjoy it, but I don't do enough, and that's me being, brutally honest.
Yeah.
I need to do more.
And motivation is the key there, and if, what's been going on in the world with the gyms not being open and whatnot, there's your key motivator gone. You can't set goals if you can't go to the gym.
Yeah.
Like you say, so range of motion, that's a big one, isn't it, for a chair user?
I think it is. I think for me personally, and I've got cerebral palsy, and I think for me, range of motion is as important as strength building or conditioning, because if I don't use a muscle group, I lose that function, and I can lose that quite quickly.
Yeah.
And also, for me, I rely heavily on my upper body strength to be able to maneuver myself around in daily life. So even getting in and out of a car, or getting on and off a seat, or transfers from a wheelchair to different things.
You need that strength.
I need that strength, and I need to be able to rely on that strength.
Yeah.
I'm very lucky. I do have strength in my legs, and I am able to use my legs, and I am able to weight bear on my legs. But again, if I don't maintain that, that can very quickly disappear. Yeah. But the range of motion thing is as important as any kind of muscle building or workout element, because it's just the maintenance of the ability to trigger those muscles.
Yes.
Because in my particular case, with my cerebral palsy, if I don't use that muscle regularly, I don't forget, but the sort of neural pathway to trigger it becomes lazy. It doesn't happen. Exercise makes me use muscles that in my normal day-to-day I wouldn't use.
Yeah.
And that's what then makes life easier in general terms. So it's to me, that's the big thing, and having that core strength, both in my core and also in my arms primarily, to then know that when I need to call upon them, they're going to take my weight, or they're going to do what I need them to do. That's really important too.
Yeah. Another key factor is obviously a lot of your movement will be pushing, so your chest and the front of your shoulders are going to get worked out quite well, and as they do, they can tighten and you get that bad posture.
Yeah.
Same with anyone who sits in a desk all day, slowly, with the fingers on the keyboards. So strengthening the back muscles, the upper back muscles, absolutely key to pin them shoulders back. And
well, that's true, but the other thing that I noticed from pushing, and my wife will tell me regularly because she observes it, from the outside looking in, if you like, is the muscle movement is shorter. So if I don't push regularly, because I'm not going out, for example, or I'm at home more, then my arm movements to push the chair become shorter. They're not full, extensive moves of the arm. So it's the shortening as well. So it's all those things you talk about the posture, but it's the actual movement becomes short movement.
Yes.
And that's particularly prevalent for me in one particular side of my body, because it's slightly worse affected than the other.
Yeah.
So again, those muscle movements will become very stunted and very short. So my wife will often tell me, I haven't got that nice fluid push because I'm doing this kind of movement. So everything just tightens up and everything becomes short, and exercise really helps that.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
it really does help that.
Yeah, stretching will obviously help that as well, lengthen the muscles, and yeah, absolutely. Then any pulling motion, because I suppose you don't do a lot of pulling motion, do you really?
No.
So if you specifically target them upper back muscles, that's going to pin your shoulders back, loosen up the front of your shoulders and your chest.
Because it's interesting you say about your back muscles, but and I can only speak for myself, but I put a lot of that weight and that transfer through my shoulders, not my back.
Right.
So if I do a pulling motion, it's kind of this motion.
Right, okay.
To sort of pull myself into the car, which is
You're
almost like a swimming motion.
You're not fully
But it's
engaged.
putting all the pressure through the shoulders.
Yeah.
And not necessarily using core strength of your stomach or core strength of your back.
Yeah, and just any shoulder movement where you're externally rotated and elevated is bad for the shoulder joint as well.
Well, it's funny you say that. I have a shoulder injury.
Yeah.
And I've had it now for a number of years, and that's exactly the problem.
Yeah.
That's what caused it. That's what it is. Because of that.
Yeah.
Putting pressure through.
Whilst
lifting
elevated and internally rotated.
And you know, it's fine now, but when I say I have a shoulder, I have to be conscious of it. I have to be careful of it. It's been repaired. It's had surgery. But that's what caused it, was that very same thing that you just mentioned.
Yeah, it's the same as some of the old school weightlifting techniques where the upright row and things like that. It's a no-go nowadays. So obviously weight management is probably harder using a chair, it's fair to say. How do you get around that?
Well, the last 12 months it's been really difficult because, you know, I'm out less. You know, I'm not going to work, so I'm not transferring my wheelchair into my car, I'm not walking around my car, I'm not doing those kind of things that don't sound as though they do a lot of cardio or burnout, but they do for me. They
burning
create
calories,
a lot of effort, you know. And not doing that, I've really noticed that I can I'll be eating the same things as I've eaten before, but I'll put weight on much easier.
Yeah.
So I have gained weight in the last 12 months. You know, I'm trying to manage it now, but exercise I think is a key way to manage that.
Yeah.
And I think not being able to do as much exercise or not doing it, it's not just a being able, you know, not being able to go to the gym, because I don't discipline myself into doing the kind of exercises that I could do at home, you know, the kind of things that, you know, we're talking about. But it's been about going to the gym, and not doing that has very definitely had a negative effect on my weight. It's very, you know, and that's something that's a very difficult, you know, thing to balance. I think I can only speak for myself, but for people with wheelchairs, a lot of the time, if you're not pushing, as we were discussing, you know, and doing that real high speed pushing, you very rarely build up a cardio burn rate in your chair, because the chair takes a lot of the effort for you, the chair takes a lot of the strength for you, so you're not actually burning your resting heart rate type thing where you're burning calories. It's very rare. You know, you can go a whole day and not really do much that's going to be at a fat burning stage in terms of calories. So I think there has to be exercise there to do that.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, cardiovascular and respiratory health, if you lose that, you know, and put weight on it around the vital organs and whatnot, visceral fat, so absolutely.
And I used to get that from just day-to-day life, because I was much more mobile. I used to be out, I used to be lifting my wheelchair in the car, lifting it out again, walking around my car, doing all those kind of transfer type things. And I think that doesn't sound a lot in the sense of exercise, but even that loss
absolutely
has made such a difference. You know, because I don't do that now from literally maybe 3-4 days a week. And that's been a massive change. So doing exercises at home and trying to build that kind of thing into day-to-day life when you're not leaving the house or you're not going outdoors, I think is really important. Yeah,
absolutely. And resistance training is perfect for that. A little bit of resistance, but cardiovascular, we're going to do a few workouts like that. Be absolutely perfect. So if we think about goals in the future and what you want to achieve, obviously we've got some workouts planned for me and you. And these are workouts for not just wheelchair users, but, you know, people who have bad knees and have to do low impact type workouts. Key part of these workouts is obviously the warm up phase, warm up and a stretch, a dynamic stretch before, a static stretch after. And this will play into the posture as well, improving the posture, because, you know, you've said before, sometimes you start leaning forward in a chair, same as anyone who sits at a desk. This will all help your thoracic extension and keeping your back straight and your shoulders back. Some pulling motions with resistance to keep them upper body muscles. So these workouts are really going to help with the cardiovascular fitness, weight management, range of motion, get the movement back in the shoulders, get them back muscles going, which are really going to help with the posture and thoracic extension, which is absolutely key. And you know, the flexibility of the joints as well. There's something in the joints called synovial fluid. It's like WD-40 for your joints. The more you exercise, the more you go through ranges of motion, the more that's going to cover the joints, and it's going to be absolutely perfect. So thinking about the future and goals, what is it you really want to get out of these workouts?
So I think for me it's two things. It is the weight management. You know, the weight management and the range of motion, I think for me is important, because I think they are definitely things that have suffered, and I want to get back to the levels that I was at before. But it's also just, you know, it's being a busy father and having a busy life with my job, and like many people, it's having that thing that's mine, that I go to the gym or I do the exercise, and I can put my earbuds in and I can just have that time to just, you know, do something I enjoy, because it does make me feel better, and it makes me feel better about myself, but also it kind of makes me feel like this is going to sound strange, but this is the best way to say it. It kind of makes me feel like I'm beating it, as in I'm beating everything. So, you know, if life's getting tough, or my wheelchair is causing me to feel a bit annoyed with life, or something's not as easy as it should be, if I do exercise and I'm fit and I'm strong and I feel better about myself, then it makes me mentally better to face what's coming. It just makes me feel better about myself, and I think for me I need to get back into that, because obviously for everybody the last year and a bit, 2 years has been really difficult. But I think those are my two things. So the weight management and the range of motion, but also the mental well-being of, you know, do the exercise, feel better about myself, feel stronger, and get back into that kind of feeling is a real big thing for me.
That is absolutely key, the motivation part you said as well, and the mental health aspect, which is intrinsically linked to physical activity. But the motivation is absolutely key, because even the world-class athletes, you know, they're not going to be motivated every day. So maybe a little bit of crossover into discipline. That's everybody. Well,
it's very easy to be lazy, and it's very easy for me. I'm by nature can be a very lazy person. You know, my wife will tell me, and I'll deny it, of course, but I am. Whereas the exercise is a thing that makes me not be, because I'm like, I can do this. And there's a big thing as well. It's aging. I'm aging, and as I age, my disability will exacerbate itself even more. And that's the thing with people with disabilities. You know, you've not only got the aging process to cope with, but you've got your disability coping with that age as well. And to stay on top of that, that's where exercise comes in.
Absolutely.
And you know, that's, you've got to be really honest with yourself. If you've got a disability, as you get older, you're going to have to fight it. You're going to have to stay ahead of it. Because if you don't, things you were able to do before and you'll take for granted doing, you'll suddenly realize you can't, because you've hit 45 or you've hit 50 or whatever age it may be. It doesn't matter. It's going to be different times for different people. But that's a really big thing. And I'm very conscious of my age, and I'm very conscious that if I don't maintain that movement, so we come back to what we were talking about before about the maintenance of a function, that's going to beat me, and that's going to lessen my quality of my life with my children and everything else. So that's my key motivation to doing it, because I want to stay ahead of my own disability. And I know that's a strange way of saying it, but that's kind of that's the driver, is staying ahead of it.
Just to be so aware of that is, you know, it's a great motivator as well. And so we can set some SMART goals. We call it SMART. You know, look to the future a little bit, put a time frame on it, and you know, start building up these muscles again and getting that range of motion that you want back. And really working towards your goals. But absolutely key what you're saying there, and just to be so self-aware of that is most of the battle.
I haven't always been, but I think again it's an experience thing. As I've got older, I've kind of realised that, you know, I need to be that way. I can't. You know, it's very, and it's an interesting thing with cerebral palsy. You suffer a lot with muscle tone, and that's tightness of the muscle, and that's uncomfortable, and it can be occasionally be painful. The flip side of that is that's sometimes what gives you the strength. But exercise, if you can do it in a measured way, can give you the strength without the tone. So it's a delicate balance. You know, it's a really delicate balance, and that balance gets harder to manage as you get older. And that's what I've learned in the last 2-3 years, because from a personal perspective, I've learned that my disability is a neurological one. It's not a physical one. So for years and years I was told, oh, it's about your muscles, it's about your bones, it's orthopedic.
Pathways.
But actually cerebral palsy isn't orthopedic at all.
Yeah.
It's the neurological, and it's the maintenance of the neurological function to trigger the muscles. That's what's important.
Yeah.
And that's the learning bit that I've done, and that's why exercise for me is really important now.
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks ever so much for chatting to us today, Mark. Really enjoyed it. It was lovely to meet you.
Thanks.
Thank you.